It's the most challenging season ever on Building Alaska.
We are in a heavy populated bear area.
Big grizzly track right here.
We're right on the edge of civilization.
A new generation of dreamers.
You gotta be self-sufficient and be tough too.
Build in the most rugged and rewarding places on the planet.
It's gonna be really dangerous.
A young teacher.
I've had this dream for quite a while.
I worry about them a lot.
An innovative craftsman.
You really just have to do whatever it takes, and we're gonna get this cabin done.
And a son.
There's no second chances.
Alongside his father.
You gotta live by your wits.
The pioneers battle brutal forces.
There's no roads whatsoever. I'm completely off grid.
Up here they call them high winds, down the lower 48 they call them hurricanes.
To survive and thrive in Alaska's wild frontier.
My primary concern is drowning. The tide is so strong.
It's gonna be quite the adventure.
Watch out!
Alaska's stunning landscapes are as diverse as they are wild. From the frozen reaches of the Arctic to the rain-soaked islands off the southeast panhandle, it takes rugged individuals to carve out their stake in Alaska. Our first courageous builder is a young dreamer who's brand new to building in Alaska. Nick Blanco is only 27 years old, and his sights are set on building his own fishing lodge.
I just love spending time outdoors. I grew up loving to fish in Minnesota lakes.
7 years ago, Nick traded life in Minneapolis for a science teaching gig in the remote village of Shishmaref, 20 miles from the Arctic Circle. During summer breaks, he became a fishing guide and boat captain off Kodiak Island.
I love teaching, but I'm taking a year off. I use the internet to search for and buy my land. I never saw it, and I bought it. This build is my life for the next year.
Nick's cabin will be located on the western side of Kodiak Island. Encompassing 3,600 square miles of rugged mountains and forests, the largest island in Alaska is home to the infamous Kodiak bears, seals, and whales. Nick's build site is tucked into one of the many remote waterways near Larsen Bay.
There's no roads whatsoever. It's all by boat over here. I'm completely off grid.
Nick's building 2 Quonset huts, similar to the semicircle metal buildings popular in World War II. The first is a 780 square foot warehouse. It'll be used to store his fishing gear, ATV, tools, and other supplies. The second is a 1,200 square foot lodge with a twist. It'll be raised and built on top of 10-foot walls, allowing the addition of a sleeping loft for guests and better views of Larsen Bay. Nick's goals are to build his Quonset huts in 5 months for $40,000. Nick's first big expense is simply getting his build supplies to virgin territory.
Despite this rig looking a little bit rough, there was a lot of love that went into packing it up and getting all the materials.
Nick's 42-foot, perfectly packed load includes a truck, a trailer, an ATV, tools, and parts of the Quonset huts. With both the build materials and land purchase adding up to $56,000, Nick is already $16,000 over budget and counting. Nick has completed a 5-hour, 220-mile drive from Anchorage to Homer. Now he'll take a 10-hour, 100 nautical mile ferry ride to the town of Kodiak. After that, a 96-foot landing craft will transport his truck and trailer 60 nautical miles to Larsen Bay Harbor. From there, he'll use his 18-foot skiff to shuttle the build materials across the bay. It's a 15-minute journey one way to his build site, and he'll have to make at least 50 round trips. The ferry ride from Homer to Kodiak is costing Nick $3,000.
I gotta do something called a double shuffle. You gotta put your trailer on, unhook, drive off, wait for the elevator to go up, and then let it come back down and drive your rig on. I'm just looking forward to getting out to Kodiak and ultimately getting out to Larsen Bay.
Our next extreme builders are 33-year-old Ben Crew and his dad Jerry from Edna Bay.
I think there's around 35, 40 people full-time in Edna Bay now. We've had a school. It's presently closed for lack of kids.
The bay sits in the southeast corner of Kosciuszko Island, and its 56 square miles lies deep in the heart of the Tongass National Forest, the largest national forest in the United States. At nearly 16 million acres, the Tongass National Forest is 3 times the size of the state of Massachusetts.
I've been interested in living in the woods since I was a little kid. Always read backwoods stories and mountain man stories.
To make a living in such a remote area, Jerry diversifies, operating both a logging company and a construction company. Jerry's oldest son, Ben, owns a metal fabrication and repair shop, specializing in boats. On an isolated island with no roads in or out, water is the main highway.
So I grew up on the water. I've had my own boat since I was probably 11 or 12. I can drive, but not as well as most people. So the water is my road. I wouldn't live without it, really.
And water is the platform for their biggest project ever. For a client, Jerry and Ben will build a new floating lodge for an existing fishing camp on a nearby island.
All the clients are flown in by float plane. It's a pretty unique experience.
Oh, wow!
That'll be the centerpiece of his operation there.
Phase 1 of their ambitious plan calls for building a 112-foot long, 40-foot wide aluminum barge. Phase 2 is building a 5,000 square foot 2-story lodge on top of the barge. The first floor includes a state-of-the-art kitchen and dining area with 4 guest rooms that sleep up to 10. Upstairs is the owner's 1,500 square foot living space that has 3 bedrooms and an office.
But our client already has this build booked for next summer, and we haven't even started on it yet.
So there's a bit of stress here coming up.
Jerry and Ben's goals are to have the barge and the floating lodge built in 11 months for $665,000. Today, Ben is on a mission to navigate from his home in Edna Bay, roughly 50 miles south, to Craig, Alaska, where his father Jerry arrived earlier with his 22-foot tugboat and small barge to haul 60,000 pounds of aluminum back to Edna Bay.
It's looking good.
Jerry and Ben must keep the 60,000 pounds of aluminum perfectly balanced to keep the boat from capsizing.
You want to swing back that way a little bit? It travels better if the bow is not heavy. Okay, down a bit. I think you're good to go. So he's got 12, 14-hour run ahead of him. It'll get dark on him. Want to get as far as he can in the daylight, especially for the trickier spots.
As Jerry pulls his precious cargo into open water, Ben doesn't like what he sees in the sky.
I think it's supposed to blow up a little bit this afternoon, so try and get through the worst of it here before it gets too late.
My little tugboat's 22 feet. It's a pretty tiny little boat, so we gotta watch the weather pretty close. You push the weather, you get in trouble.
Deep in the Alaskan interior is our next ambitious builder, 29-year-old Brannon Richard.
I am born and raised in Fairbanks, Alaska. I now live in North Pole, Alaska, which is just outside of Fairbanks. I grew up playing hockey in the winters and racing motocross in the summers. As I got older, I developed a love for building.
Brannon is an award-winning, off-the-grid builder. And this next build on Alaska's Arctic tundra is going to be his biggest challenge yet. Accessible only by ATV or snow machine, Brannon's build is about 100 miles outside of Fairbanks.
We are about as in the middle of nowhere as you can get. It certainly presents a lot of challenges.
Despite the hardships ahead, the build is deeply meaningful and worth it for Brannon.
This is just a really sentimental area for the guy that we're building it for, Dick Holm. Dick was a scout leader for a number of years, and that's most of his memories, bringing the Boy Scouts out here. He's really excited to be able to have a cabin out here.
I staked this land 31 years ago and always had the intention of putting up at least a small cabin for hunting and recreation.
Brennan's Creekside cabin will be 1,000 square feet with 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, an open living room on the first floor, and a loft upstairs. Brannon's goals are to build his cabin in 6 weeks for $70,000.
As soon as we get all this loaded up, all you guys are just going to stay with the four-wheeler all day.
Brannon is bringing his most trusted crew members on the build.
Yeah, we got to get this track back on in order to get rolling. Otherwise, it ain't gonna happen.
You know, they're not just skilled at building houses. There's so many other skills that come into play out here.
And if their mechanical skills can't get this ATV up and running, the project is stalled before it's even started.